The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the first attack. Ambassador Ji-won Park of Earth sat in humanity's designated seat, her hands folded calmly on the curved desk before her as holographic displays showed the devastation. 3 human colonies burned. 2 council outposts lay in ruins. The Zephron Collective had struck simultaneously across a dozen star systems, and the death toll climbed with each passing minute. Council Chairman Vexthor's scales rippled with barely contained fury as he addressed the assembled representatives. His species, the Crithians, had dominated galactic military doctrine for 3,000 years. War was something they understood with crystalline clarity. The Zephron attack represents an existential threat to Council authority, Vexthor declared, his voice resonating through the chamber's translation matrix. We must respond with overwhelming force, total mobilization of all member fleets, complete destruction of Zephron military capability. This is not negotiable. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Peluvian delegates clicked their mandibles in approval. The gaseous Thyran representatives pulsed with aggressive colors. Even the normally Pacific Centaurians nodded their crystalline heads. Park watched the displays carefully. The attack had been brutal and coordinated, yes, but something in the pattern troubled her. The Zephron had struck military and colonial targets with precision, but civilian casualties were surprisingly low for such widespread assault. Their weapons had been calibrated to destroy infrastructure, not maximize death. It was almost as if they wanted to provoke a response without committing genocide. Ambassador Park, Vexthor turned his attention to humanity's representative. Your colonies suffered significant damage. Earth's military reputation precedes you. Your species has demonstrated remarkable ferocity when threatened. What forces can you commit to the retaliatory strike? The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew humanity's history. Earth had joined the Galactic Council only 40 years prior, and their introduction had been dramatic. When the Karlovian raiders had attacked a human research station, Earth's response had been swift and devastating. The humans had hunted down every raider ship, disabled them with weapons the Council had never seen before, and then done something unexpected. They had put the raiders on trial, offered them rehabilitation, and eventually released them. The Karlovians now served as Earth's staunchest allies. It was that combination of capability and restraint that made other species nervous around humans. They could be savage warriors when needed, but their savagery was always tempered by something the Council didn't quite understand: mercy, compassion, a refusal to dehumanize even their enemies. Park stood slowly, her slight frame seeming to fill the chamber through sheer presence alone. She had been a humanitarian worker before becoming a diplomat, had seen the worst of what humanity could do to itself, and had dedicated her life to ensuring those mistakes never repeated. Chairman Vexthor, esteemed council members, she began, her voice steady. Earth has mobilized our defensive fleets. Captain Min Jun Kang currently commands our forces in the affected sectors. Our ships are engaging Zephron military vessels as we speak. We are defending our colonies and protecting council installations. Vexthor's scales settled into satisfaction. Excellent. And your offensive commitment? That is what I need to discuss with this council, Park continued. Earth has analyzed the Zephron attack pattern. Their strikes were precise, almost surgical. They avoided civilian population centers. Their goal appears to be provocation, not extermination. We believe this is a desperate action by a species facing internal crisis. The Peluvian ambassador chittered derisively. You defend those who attacked you? I explain what we observe, Park corrected gently. Our intelligence services have intercepted Zephron communications. Their home worlds are experiencing ecological collapse, resource scarcity. Their government likely launched this attack to unite their population through external conflict, to distract from internal failures. This is a pattern humanity knows well from our own history. Your point, Ambassador? Vex Thor's patience was wearing thin. Park took a breath. What she was about to propose would shock them. It had shocked her own government when she first suggested it. But Earth's President and Security Council had ultimately agreed. Sometimes the most savage response was the one no one expected. Earth proposes a different kind of response to this attack, she said clearly. We will defend ourselves and Council territories. We will disable Zephron military vessels, but we will not launch retaliatory strikes against their home worlds. Instead, we are offering sanctuary. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages, their translation matrices struggling to keep up. Vexathor slammed his primary appendage against his desk, calling for order. "Explain this madness," he demanded. "We are offering asylum to Zephron civilians," Park said calmly over the chaos. "Refugees fleeing their failing worlds, their children, their elderly, their non-combatants. Captain Kang's fleet is already rescuing survivors from damaged Zephron ships. We are establishing refugee processing centers on 3 Earth colonies. We will feed them, shelter them, protect them." "You will protect the enemy?" The Centaurian ambassador's voice crystallized with disbelief. "We will protect the innocent," Park corrected. "The Zephron people did not choose this war. Their desperate government did. We will not punish children for the sins of their leaders. We will not become the monsters that hatred would make us." Vexthor stared at her as if she had grown a second head. "This is your savage response? Mercy?" Park met his gaze steadily. "Yes, Chairman. Earth learned something from our violent history. We learned that revenge creates endless cycles of violence. We learned that true strength is not in how thoroughly you can destroy your enemy, but in whether you can break the cycle entirely. The most savage thing we can do to the Zephron government is prove they were wrong about us. Wrong about the galaxy. Wrong about what strength means." The chamber had fallen silent again, but it was a different silence now, stunned, uncertain. Several delegates exchanged glances, clearly wondering if humanity had lost its collective mind. "You realize," Vexthor said slowly, "that this approach is unprecedented in galactic history, that it may be seen as weakness, that it may encourage further attacks." "We realize," Park acknowledged, "and we're doing it anyway. Because somebody has to be first. Somebody has to show that there's another way. Earth volunteers for that role." She sat down, her message delivered. Around the chamber, delegates began arguing among themselves, their voices rising in waves of confusion and debate. But Park simply watched the displays showing Captain Kang's ships already beginning their rescue operations among the wreckage of battle, already proving that humanity's most savage response would be love in the face of hatred. Captain Min Jun Kong stood on the bridge of the EDS horizon, watching his tactical display with the focused intensity that had made him one of Earth's most respected military commanders. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency, coordinating the strangest military operation in human history. "Captain, 3rd rescue pod secured," his executive officer reported. 27 Zephron civilians aboard, medical teams standing by. Kang nodded. "Excellent work. Route them to Processing Center Gamma. Commander Lee, status on the Zephron cruiser in Sector 7. "Disabled, sir. Minimal casualties. They're drifting but stable. Their distress beacon is active." "Send coordinates to their fleet," Kang ordered. "Let them retrieve their own wounded." He paused, studying the tactical map. "And Commander, make sure our ships don't fire on their rescue vessels. We're here to defend, not to murder." The tactical situation was unlike anything in his military training. Earth's fleet had engaged 17 Zephron warships in the past 6 hours. They had disabled 14 of them using precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse weapons that fried ship systems without breaching hulls or killing crews. The remaining 3 had retreated, likely to report this bewildering development to their commanders. But the real challenge was what came after each engagement. The Zephron ships carried not just soldiers, but civilian contractors, family members, refugees who had been evacuated from their dying worlds. Earth's ships were now processing hundreds of confused, frightened aliens who had expected death and instead found medical care and hot meals. "Sir, we're getting another transmission from Council Command," his communications officer announced. "Chairman Vexthor wants to speak with you directly." Kang sighed. This would be the fourth such call today. "Put him through." Vexthor's scaled face appeared on the main display, his expression unreadable. "Captain Kang, I am watching your fleet's activities with deep concern. You have disabled multiple enemy vessels but failed to destroy a single one. You are expending resources on rescue operations instead of pressing your tactical advantage. Explain this strategy." "With respect, Chairman, I am following Earth's directives," Kang replied evenly. "We are defending Council space and human colonies while offering humanitarian aid to non-combatants. Our strategy is working. Zephron military effectiveness has dropped 40% in the last 6 hours." "Because you are coddling them." Vexthor's scales rippled with frustration. "They will see this as weakness and redouble their attacks." "I don't think they will, sir," Kang said. He gestured to one of his officers who brought up a communication intercept. "We've been monitoring Zephron military channels. Their commanders are confused. They don't understand why we're not retaliating. More importantly, their civilian population is hearing about it. We're already seeing decreased morale among their forces." On Earth, Dr. Hana Song was experiencing her own challenges with humanity's unprecedented response. The xenobiologist had been called away from her research to help manage the first wave of Zephron refugees arriving at the processing center on New Sol, one of Earth's largest colonies. The temporary camp now held over 300 Zephron civilians, and more arrived every hour. Hana moved through the rows of climate-controlled habitats, checking on medical needs and trying to ease the confusion of people who had expected to die and instead found themselves being cared for by the very species their government had attacked. A young Zephron mother clutched her infant close, her chitinous faceplate quivering with what Hana had learned to recognize as their equivalent of tears. Through the translation device, her words came clear. "Why do you help us? We attacked you. We destroyed your homes. Why do you not kill us?" Hana knelt beside her, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. "Because you didn't attack us. Your government did. You and your child are not responsible for decisions made by leaders desperate to maintain power. On Earth, we learned a long time ago that punishing innocent people for their government's crimes only creates more suffering." "This is not how war works," the Zephron woman whispered. "This is not natural." "Maybe war shouldn't be natural," Hana replied gently. "Maybe we can do better." She continued her rounds, treating radiation sickness from damaged ships, addressing malnutrition from months of rationing on dying Zephron worlds, and slowly building trust with people who had been taught that all other species were threats to be eliminated or exploited. Back at the Galactic Council, Ambassador Park faced a different kind of battle. She stood before an emergency session, fielding questions and accusations from representatives who could not comprehend Earth's actions. "You are being manipulated," the Peluvian ambassador insisted, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "The Zephron will exploit your compassion. They will infiltrate your colonies. This is obviously a trap." "We are screening all refugees carefully," Park explained with patience she didn't entirely feel. "Background checks, medical evaluations, security protocols, but we won't let fear of deception prevent us from helping people who need it." "Your own colonies were attacked," another delegate objected. "Your people died. How can you shelter those responsible?" "The soldiers who attacked us are not among the refugees," Park said firmly. "We are rescuing civilians, children who had no voice in this war. Elderly people who remember when Zephron worlds were green and thriving. People who are as much victims of their government's desperation as we are. Vexthor leaned forward in his seat. Ambassador Park, I must ask you directly. What does Earth hope to gain from this? What is your strategic objective? Because this council cannot understand your actions through any traditional framework of warfare or diplomacy. Park was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Chairman, when my species was young, we nearly destroyed ourselves. Wars based on race, religion, resources, ideology. We killed millions. We poisoned our own world. We came very close to extinction. Do you know what saved us? The chamber waited. It wasn't superior weapons or brilliant tactics, Park continued. It was the moment we decided that our children deserved better than our mistakes. The moment we chose to break cycles instead of perpetuating them. Some humans showed compassion to former enemies, and slowly, over generations, we learned that we could be more than our worst impulses. She stood, addressing the entire council. What does Earth hope to gain? We hope to prove that civilization can mean something more than sophisticated violence. We hope that 50 years from now, Zephron children raised on human worlds will build bridges between our species. We hope that by refusing to become what hurt us, we make the galaxy a little bit better. That is not a military strategy, Vexthor said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. No, Park agreed. It's something far more savage. It's hope in the face of hatred. It's the radical belief that peace is possible even after violence. And it's the only strategy that has ever truly worked for my species in the long term. The council chamber fell into uncertain silence once more, as delegates grappled with a response to war that none of their civilizations had ever imagined. And across human space, ships continued their rescue operations, proving that humanity's savage response would not be measured in destruction, but in lives saved. 3 weeks after Earth's unprecedented declaration, the galaxy watched in fascination as humanity's savage response continued to unfold in ways no one had predicted. In the Zephron Military Command Center on their primary world, General Kreshavor stared at reports that made no tactical sense. Explain this again, he demanded of his intelligence officers, his secondary arms gesturing at the holographic displays. Our forces engage human vessels. The humans disable our ships. And then they rescue our crews. Yes, General, his aide confirmed nervously. Multiple confirmed incidents. The humans are treating our wounded, feeding our soldiers, and returning them to us in exchange for civilian refugees. They are also broadcasting messages into Zephron space, offering asylum to anyone who wishes to leave. Kreshavor's chitinous plates shifted with agitation. The entire war strategy had been based on the assumption that attacking the Council would unite Zephron populations behind the government, providing distraction from ecological collapse and resource shortages. But Earth's response was creating the opposite effect. What is civilian morale? He asked, though he already suspected the answer. Destabilizing, sir. Families with members in human custody are receiving communication from them. They report good treatment. And the broadcasts showing human colonies accepting Zephron refugees are spreading through our information networks faster than we can suppress them. On New Sol, young Zrathak huddled with his mother in their assigned habitat, trying to process everything that had happened. He was only 8 cycles old by Zephron counting, and his entire world had changed in a matter of weeks. The attack, the evacuation, the fear, and then the humans. Dr. Song appeared at their habitat entrance, her warm smile immediate. She had visited them every day, checking on Zrathak's recovery from the radiation exposure he had suffered aboard the damaged transport ship. How are you feeling today? She asked, her translation device rendering her words in Zephron harmonics. Zrathak's mother gestured permission, and he stepped forward shyly. Better, Dr. Song. The medicine you gave me stopped the burning feeling. I'm glad, Hana replied. She knelt to his level, something she had learned was a trust signal among Zephron young. I brought you something. We thought you might like to attend school with the human children. Would you be interested? Zarathak's eyes stalks widened. Human children? But I am Zephron. We attacked you. You didn't attack anyone, Hana said gently. You're a child, and children deserve to learn and play, regardless of what governments do. We have other Zephron young attending now, 37 of them. They're making friends. His mother made a sound that the translator rendered as surprise. You would educate our children, alongside your own? Of course, Hana said simply. Knowledge isn't something we hoard. It's something we share. Besides, your children have things to teach our children too, about your culture, your history, your perspectives. That makes everyone stronger. That afternoon, Zrathak found himself in a human classroom, surrounded by strange beings with soft skin and hair instead of chitin and scales. A human child named Sarah approached him during the break period. Hi, she said brightly. I'm Sarah. Want to see my drawings? I've been learning about Zephron art styles. Your geometric patterns are really cool. Zrathak stared at her, then at the offered datapad showing careful attempts to replicate traditional Zephron decorative motifs. Something tight in his chest began to loosen. You studied my people's art? Yeah. Dr. Song gave us all these learning materials. She said understanding each other's beauty helps us understand each other's hearts. Sarah grinned. That's kind of poetic, but I think she's right. Do you want to show me how to do it properly? And I can teach you about human music? We're learning instruments. Across the galaxy, Chairman Vexthor made an unannounced visit to one of Earth's refugee processing centers. He had demanded the right to inspect the facilities, certain he would find evidence of the duplicity he was sure lay behind humanity's actions. What he found instead shook his understanding of civilization itself. Ambassador Park met him at the entrance, her expression neutral but welcoming. Chairman, thank you for coming. Please look wherever you wish. We have nothing to hide. Vexthor moved through the facilities with his security detail, his scaled form towering over the human workers who calmly continued their duties. He saw medical centers treating Zephron ailments with care and precision. He saw dining facilities serving food adapted to Zephron nutritional needs. He saw children playing under supervision in recreation areas that had been modified to accommodate their physiology. What disturbed him most was the absence of guards. The Zephron refugees moved freely within the center boundaries, interacting with human staff without apparent fear or hostility. He stopped before a group of elderly Zephron who sat in a common area, engaged in what appeared to be a traditional storytelling ritual. A young human woman sat among them, listening with evident interest, occasionally asking questions through her translator. You allow them to practice their cultural traditions? Vexthor asked Park. Why wouldn't we? She replied. Helping refugees doesn't mean erasing who they are. It means giving them safety to be themselves. Vexthor approached the group, and the elderly Zephron looked up at him with a mixture of recognition and wariness. One of them, her carapace marked with the scars of a long life, spoke directly to him. You are Council Chairman Vexthor. I recognize you from broadcasts. You must think us traitors, accepting help from those our government attacked. I am trying to understand, Vexthor admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. The elderly Zephron gestured to the young human woman. This is Emily. She is learning our histories because she says they matter. She says our stories have value even though our worlds are dying, even though our government made terrible choices. The humans do not see us as enemies. They see us as people. Can you say your council has ever done that for refugees? The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Vexthor had lived for 400 years. He had served on the council for 200. In all that time, he had never questioned the basic assumptions of galactic civilization, that strength meant military might, that security came from deterrence and fear, that mercy was a luxury reserved for allies. Earth was teaching him that those assumptions might be wrong. Later, as Park escorted him back to his shuttle, Vexthor stopped and turned to face her. "Ambassador, I must confess something. I came here expecting to find a trap, some hidden agenda, some way that humanity was exploiting this situation for strategic advantage." "And what did you find?" Park asked. "I found people being helped," he said slowly. "I found children being educated. I found elderly being respected. I found culture being preserved. I found—" He paused, struggling with the concept. "I found mercy being practiced without expectation of reward." "That's because the reward isn't tactical," Park explained. "It's moral. Every Zephron child who grows up knowing humans chose peace over revenge is a seed of future cooperation. Every refugee who tells their story plants doubt in the war narrative. We're not being kind because it's a clever strategy. We're being kind because it's right, and because what's right often turns out to be strategic in ways violence never can be." As Vexthor's shuttle departed, he found himself reviewing everything he thought he knew about power and civilization. And on New Sol, Zrathak laughed for the first time since the war began, his chittering joy mixing with Sarah's giggles as they shared their world's stories with each other. Two children proving that humanity's savage response was already transforming the galaxy in ways no weapon ever could. The Zephron Government Council chamber crackled with tension as General Kreshavor presented his military assessment. His usually confident bearing had eroded over the past month, replaced by something his species rarely displayed: uncertainty. "The situation is untenable," he admitted to the assembled leadership. "Our forces are experiencing mass defection. Entire crews are requesting asylum with Earth rather than returning to duty. Civilian morale has collapsed. Production quotas are failing as families prioritize emigration applications over labor." Supreme Governor Zelthar's carapace darkened with anger. "We attacked them. They should hate us. They should want revenge. Why are they offering mercy?" "Because they are human," Kreshavor replied quietly. "And we fundamentally misunderstood what that means. We assumed they would respond to aggression with aggression. Instead, they responded with something we have no defense against: compassion." In the intelligence section, leaked communications from Zephron refugees had flooded their networks. Videos of Zephron children playing with human children. Messages from elderly Zephron being treated for illnesses the Zephron medical system could no longer afford to address. Stories of human families hosting Zephron refugees in their homes, sharing meals, sharing lives. The most damaging was a viral message from a Zephron soldier who had been captured, treated for injuries, and offered asylum. His words had spread across Zephron space like wildfire. "They could have killed us. They had every right after what we did. Instead, they saved us. They fed us. They asked about our families. I have never been treated with such dignity by my own government. I am staying with Earth. My war is over." On Earth, Captain Kang stood before the Defense Committee, providing his monthly update on military operations. His presentation included statistics that would have seemed impossible 6 weeks ago. "Zephron military engagement has dropped 92%, he reported. Their remaining active forces are concentrated in defensive positions around their core worlds. We've received surrender offers from 17 ship commanders. We've processed 2,847 requests for asylum from Zephron military personnel. Civilian refugee applications now exceed 40,000. The committee chairman, a stern woman named Admiral Chen, studied the numbers carefully. "And our defensive posture?" "Stable, Admiral. We maintain our protective perimeter, but have not advanced into Zephron territory. We continue rescue operations in contested zones. Our casualties remain minimal. Morale among our forces is exceptionally high." They understand what we're doing matters. At the Galactic Council, something unprecedented was occurring. Representative after representative stood to address the assembly, and their topic was the same: Earth's response to the Zephron attack. The Centaurian ambassador spoke first, his crystalline form refracting light as he gestured. My government has studied Earth's refugee protocols extensively. We are implementing similar programs for populations displaced by the Viridian drought crisis, humanitarian aid instead of quarantine, sanctuary instead of suspicion. The Peluvian ambassador, who had been among the most vocal critics of Earth's approach, rose next. His mandibles moved slowly, a sign of careful thought. This council must acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. We have maintained peace through threat of destruction for millennia. Earth has shown us an alternative in mere weeks. Perhaps it is time we evolved our understanding of security. Ambassador Park listened with quiet satisfaction as speaker after speaker endorsed variations of humanity's approach. But she knew the real test was yet to come. The Zephron government had to make a choice: continue a war they were losing not through military defeat, but through moral obsolescence, or accept the unprecedented peace terms Earth was offering. Vexthor stood, commanding the chamber's attention. His scales had shifted to colors Park had learned indicated deep reflection. This council was founded on principles of mutual defense and deterrence. We believed that strength came from our ability to punish aggression. Earth has shown us something different. They have demonstrated that true strength is the courage to offer mercy, even when revenge would be easier. He paused, his gaze finding Park. I have visited Earth's refugee centers. I have watched Zephron children learn alongside human children. I have seen elderly Zephron treated with dignity by the very people their government attacked. I have witnessed something I thought impossible: enemy combatants voluntarily surrendering not out of fear, but out of hope. The chairman's voice grew stronger. I propose that this council formally endorses Earth's approach, that we establish protocols for humanitarian intervention and refugee protection based on their model, that we acknowledge warfare need not be our only response to conflict. Earth has taught us that civilization can mean more than sophisticated violence. The vote was called. When it concluded, every council member had voted in favor. Park felt tears threatening, but maintained her composure. This was the moment humanity had been working toward, but the work was far from finished. The real transformation came 3 days later when a transmission arrived from Zephron space. Supreme Governor Zelthar appeared on screens across the galaxy, his chitinous face bearing marks of exhaustion and defeat. To the Galactic Council and to Earth, he began, his harmonics translated into a dozen languages. The Zephron Collective acknowledges the failure of our military aggression. We attacked you out of desperation, believing that external enemies would unite our failing civilization. We were wrong. He paused, and Park could see the weight of his words bearing down on him. Earth responded to our violence with mercy we do not deserve. They protected our civilians when we expected extermination. They offered hope to our children when we offered only death. They have shown us that our government's path leads only to ruin. The Zephron Collective formally requests negotiations for peace. But more than peace, we request help. Our worlds are dying. Our people are suffering. Earth has demonstrated they will help even those who attack them. We dare to hope that help might extend to preventing the ecological collapse that drove us to this desperation. Ambassador Park stood before the council to respond, her voice carrying across the galaxy. The Zephron government made terrible choices born from terrible circumstances. But we will not punish your entire civilization for those choices. Earth accepts your request for peace negotiations. More than that, we offer immediate humanitarian assistance for your ecological crisis. She looked directly into the camera, knowing Zephron families across their worlds would be watching. But let me be clear about our terms. We will help you save your worlds. We will share our ecological restoration technology. We will provide food and medical aid. In exchange, we ask that you allow your people the freedom to choose their own future. Let them come to our refugee centers, learn about alternatives, and decide for themselves where they wish to live. We ask that you educate your children alongside ours, that cultural exchange replaces cultural isolation. We ask that you work with us to build a galaxy where desperation doesn't drive species to war because cooperation provides better solutions. Earth's savage response to your attack is this: we refuse to be your enemy. We insist on being your partners in survival. We demand that you let us help you, even though you tried to hurt us. That is our terms for peace. Accept mercy. Accept cooperation. Accept that there is another way. Across Zephron space, in cramped habitats on dying worlds, millions watched and wept. And in human refugee centers, Zephron families who had already made their choice held each other close, grateful for the savage response that had saved them all. 6 months after the war that never truly was, Ambassador Park stood before a very different Galactic Council. The chamber had been reconfigured to accommodate new permanent observers, Zephron representatives who had been elected by their own people in the first free elections their civilization had ever held. The peace treaty had been signed 3 months prior. Its terms had shocked traditional diplomats across the galaxy. No reparations, no territorial concessions, no punishment. Instead, the document outlined cooperative frameworks for ecological restoration, cultural exchange programs, and joint humanitarian initiatives that would benefit both Zephron and Council worlds. Today's session had a special purpose. Chairman Vexthor had requested that young Zrathok address the Council. The Zephron child, who had become a symbol of reconciliation, stood at the speaker's podium, his small form dwarfed by the grand chamber. But his voice, amplified through the translation matrix, carried clearly. "My name is Zrathak," he began, his harmonics steady despite obvious nervousness. 6 months ago, I was on a transport ship fleeing my dying world. I was scared. I was sick from radiation. My mother told me we were probably going to die because we had attacked the humans and they would want revenge. He paused, his eye stalks sweeping across the assembled delegates. Instead, the humans saved us. Dr. Hanasong treated my radiation sickness. Ambassador Park made sure my mother and I had a home. Captain Kang's ships protected us when other species might have destroyed us. And Sarah, my human friend, taught me that what governments do in our names doesn't have to define who we are to each other. Park watched from her seat, pride and emotion warring in her chest. Besides Zratak, his mother stood with other Zephron refugees who had volunteered to share their experiences. "I go to school with human children now," Zratak continued. "I am learning Earth history. Do you know what I learned? That humans almost destroyed themselves with wars. That they killed each other over differences that seem silly now. That they poisoned their own world and nearly went extinct. But they chose to change. They chose to be better." His voice grew stronger. "When my people attacked Earth, humans could have responded the same way. They could have destroyed us. They could have shown us what revenge looks like. Instead, they showed us what mercy looks like, what hope looks like, what the future could look like if we are brave enough to choose it. I am Zephron. I will always be Zephron. But I am also something new. I am a child of 2 worlds. I carry my people's history and human values both. And I am not alone. Thousands of us are growing up this way now. We are the bridge between what was and what could be." He gestured to the Zephron section. "My people's government made terrible choices. But Earth taught the galaxy that people are not their governments. That children deserve futures regardless of what their leaders did. That mercy is not weakness. It is the strongest force in the universe." The chamber erupted in applause. Even species that had no concept of clapping found ways to express their approval. Park saw Vexthor's scales shimmer with colors she had learned indicated deep emotion in Crithians. After the session, Park found herself on the observation deck with Vexthor, looking out at the stars. The chairman had requested a private conversation, and she was curious about his purpose. "Ambassador Park," he began, his tone reflective. "I have served this council for 200 years. I have witnessed wars, peace treaties, alliances, and betrayals, but I have never seen anything transform galactic civilization the way Earth's response to the Zephron attack has." "We simply chose differently," Park replied modestly. "No," Vexthor corrected gently. "You chose savagely. You chose with a ferocity that violence could never match. You chose to break every expectation, every precedent, every comfortable assumption about how power works. That took more courage than any battle." He turned to face her directly. "Do you know what has happened in the past 6 months? 17 council worlds have established humanitarian refugee programs. 9 conflicts have ended through mediation rather than military intervention. The Thyron Collective has requested Earth's help with their resource distribution crisis instead of raiding weaker neighbors. Your savage response did not just change how we handle one species. It changed how we think about civilization itself." Park smiled. "We're not perfect, Chairman. We make mistakes. We have our own problems. But we learned one thing from our terrible history. The choice between revenge and reconciliation is the choice between repeating the past and creating the future. Earth has given the galaxy a gift," Vexthor said. "You have shown us that peace is not simply the absence of war. It is the active choice to build something better, even when violence would be easier, especially when violence would be easier." On Earth, Dr. Hana Song walked through the expanded refugee center with a Zephron colleague, now working alongside her as an equal partner in xenobiological research. They were developing crops that could grow on damaged Zephron worlds, combining human agricultural science with Zephron ecological knowledge. Captain Kang had been promoted to admiral, tasked with training other species militaries in what had become known as defensive compassion, the integration of humanitarian principles into military operations. His first class included officers from 12 different council worlds, all eager to learn how Earth had achieved strategic victory through mercy. In schools across human space, Zephron children learned alongside human children, sharing cultures and building friendships that would define the next generation of galactic civilization. The curriculum now included the story of the war as a cautionary tale about what happens when fear drives policy, and an inspiring tale about what happens when compassion drives response. Ambassador Park received a personal message from her government that evening. The president wanted her to know that the Galactic Reconciliation Institute she had proposed was approved. Earth would establish the first center dedicated to teaching conflict resolution through humanitarian intervention. Applications from every council world were already flooding in. That night, Park stood alone in her quarters looking at the stars. 6 months ago, those stars had been divided by a war that could have devastated multiple species. Now, they twinkled over a galaxy that was learning a new way to resolve conflicts. She thought about Zrathak's speech, about his declaration that he was a child of 2 worlds. That was humanity's savage response in its purest form. Not destroying enemies, but transforming them into family. Not ending threats through elimination, but eliminating enmity through understanding. Earth had proven that the most savage thing any civilization could do was refuse to become what hurt it. To look at violence and respond with protection, to see hatred and answer with hope, to face war and insist on peace so aggressively that war itself became obsolete. The Galactic Council had been speechless at Earth's response because they had never imagined that mercy could be a weapon more powerful than any bomb, that compassion could win victories no army could achieve, that the simple radical act of treating enemies as future friends could restructure entire civilizations. Park smiled at the stars, thinking of all the children like Zrathak growing up across the galaxy, carrying both their heritage and their hope. Earth's savage response had not ended with a peace treaty. It was just beginning, spreading through every school, every friendship, every person who learned that the future did not have to repeat the past. Humanity had shown the galaxy its most savage face, and it was the face of unconditional love offered even to those who came as enemies. In a universe that had known only the savagery of violence, Earth had introduced the savagery of mercy, and the galaxy would never be the same.